Moscow's weather in winter feels like a long way from the Arab Spring they have fled. More than 24 Coptic Christians cram cheek by jowl in a large building just behind one of the venues for the Olympics that the city hosted more than 30 years ago. They say they were persecuted under the new authorities in Egypt, headed by President Mohammed Morsi. His Muslim Brotherhood was voted in after the first elections that the country had ever had. But Coptic communities around the world are concerned at an increase in violence against followers of their faith, which has been part of the fabric of Egypt for several hundred years before the birth of Islam. Yasser Girgis is from Almenia, that's a city near the border with Libya. He left the country after Islamist militants captured his son and demanded a ransom.
The
Islamists started going after my family, and they kidnapped my son and asked for 50,000 Egyptian pounds. I paid the ransom, but couldn't stay. There was a degree of repression under Mubarak, like not being able to work and not finding work, but after the Muslim Brotherhood took power, it got worse. They started to burn churches.
Now he's in good spirits, and he and his fellow Copts are being looked after by human rights activists from the Moscow-based Civic Assistance Committee. The committee is a non-governmental organization that was co-founded by Svetlana Ganushkina in 1990. She's recognized internationally for her work on human rights in Russia. She's so well regarded that just before we speak, she had met the French President François Hollande, who was on a visit to Moscow. She speaks to me in Russian, but now and again drops into English. For many years, the committee worked in the Caucasus to help internally displaced people in Russia. Now she's seeing an influx of people from Egypt, because many say there may be hope in Russia. They come here because it's easier to get a visa than for a European Union country.
Да, совершенно верно. Сначала люди надеются на что-то, потом они
When people arrive, they hope for great expectations, and they go through this whole process, and in the end, we can ask the UNHCR, and they will decide if it's possible to send them to a third country. But they will have to fulfill their criteria, and that is a long process.
Ridi Falsi is 25 years old and is from the Egyptian city of Massa Matrush. He says that since the Muslim Brotherhood came to power, he has been threatened.
And broken our cars, yeah, and told me if you don't change your religion, yeah, we'll kill you.
On the premises is a lawyer who can help with the application for refugee status to Russia's Federal Migration Service. This is a process which can take up to 6 months and has only a slim chance of success, as Svetlana Ganushkina explains.
They have
barely no chance to get refugee status. Only 800 got refugee status and 3,000 got temporary asylum. The Federal Migration Service will look at the demand, but this will take 3 to 6 months, and most of the time they don't get it anyway. It takes a long time to get to the refugee camp.
The refugee camp she's referring to is in the region of Perm, about 1,400 kilometers away from Moscow. If they get approval, some of this group will be taken there. It will be isolated, but there will be food, shelter, and hot running water, a place better suited to housing people than these premises. Her organization does its best to help on limited resources.
I have to say that we have no money from anybody for this work. So money which we spend to these people, it's our own money, our salary, or maybe the money of our friends, and sometimes some our friends from abroad sent us a little money. So it's a big problem.
It's not just Coptic Christians who are vulnerable in the new Egypt. Last month, Amnesty International published a report outlining how attacks on women are on the rise. They said attacks followed a troubling pattern of mobs surrounding women protesters in Tahrir Square, where they would be attacked or violated. Vasma is 19 years old. She says she can never go back to Egypt.
I was asked to wear the hijab and was made to cover my face. Otherwise I would get insulted, have my hair pulled.
Yasser Girgis has only been in Russia for 3 weeks, but he saw Russia as a place where he might be able to build a new life for his family.
We chose Russia because we could get a visa. We hope that this black cloud hanging over Egypt would lift and Egypt would be like it was before.
The Civic Assistance Committee will be there should the need arise for the refugees to be moved on to a third country. But it is an uphill battle. Svetlana Ganushkina breaks into English again to emphasize this point.
I'm very glad that have such optimism and hope, because without hope it's impossible to live. But unfortunately, I'm not so sure that it's reality.
And the reality for these Egyptian Copts who turn to Russia for help will become known in a couple of weeks.